The Leo Alves podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leo Alves podcast. And in today's podcast episode, I am going to discuss with you how to stay active even when you're short on time, because I understand it. You want to get fit, but your schedule is packed and finding time to exercise just seems impossible. And I know that sounds familiar with you right now. And this is something that many people are, going through in today's day and age, where productivity or wanting to be productive is at an all-time high. And you might feel like you have 101 things going on, whether it's, going to meet up with your friends or working a job, potentially a second job, looking and raising after kids, trying to balance a social life, trying to balance staying fit and healthy, wanting to go traveling, and just other errands that need to get done day to day, whether it's like just the smaller things, like you don't even think about potentially taking a trip to the post office, or maybe having to spontaneously go to the hospital because something's happened, a checkup with your GP. There's just so many things that that just can be happening, that again, it feels very tough to balance your health and fitness sometimes. And I get that, especially when it's not something you're used to really implementing into your routine. Maybe once you've been doing it for long enough and you've been exercising, it feels quite easy because you've built your life around just working out and being active. But when you first start getting into it, for some people, great, you do know exactly when and where you have time, but for others, potentially yourself included, you're just thinking, where on earth am I going to make time for this? So in today's podcast episode, I'm going to list several tips, I think about 7, in which you can help you somewhat just like sneak in physical activity in your day-to-day routine. And it's going to go a long way, trust me. Like, not maybe necessarily just like obviously doing it one-off in isolation, but exercise is never going to be one of those things where it just makes a huge difference. Exercising once, for example, doing one workout, is about habits that compound and stack up over time with consistency. And the same thing goes for these habits as well. It's about things that you have to be consistent with over time, and it's not just something you're going to magically see results on the back of just from doing once or twice. Okay, so again, let's just get started in no particular order. And the first one is take the stairs instead of the elevator. And I know what you're thinking right now, Leo, what on earth are you talking about? You're wasting my time. That is way too simplistic. Like, why am I even listening to this podcast episode? But here's the thing. Overlooking the quote-unquote simplistic stuff like this is precisely why you're struggling to stay active right now. This is a straightforward way to add extra steps and extra movement to your day and increase your heart rate, without even really having to go out your way to do much. Because again, it's like that's just like one of probably the most effortless ways to just, again, implement physical activity into your daily routine. If you are telling yourself right now that you've got no time to exercise, then I don't think you're even really in a position where you can be picky right now. Like, just getting it in where you can is going to make a massive difference. And if taking the stairs instead of the elevator is just one of those small adjustments that you're going to make, or going to have to make to get that physical activity up, so you're at least doing something, then go for it. Okay, it does add up over time, trust me. And it's just one of those things where I really like it as well when I'm trying to increase my step count. So for context, right now I'm trying to be in a little bit of a calorie deficit. I had a freak incident back in July and kind of stopped me from walking for like 5-6 weeks, and during that period I gained some body fat, which is normal. I couldn't really, or I was nowhere near as physically active as I otherwise usually would be. Like, I was still doing upper body workout sessions because I don't like to do no exercise at all. It's just like, by this point, it's part of my identity, I would say, because I wouldn't be a one-to-one online fitness coach if it wasn't somewhat. But yeah, I wasn't walking anywhere near as much. I wasn't doing lower body sessions. I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu. So yeah, over that time, naturally, I gained a little bit of body fat. But now I'm in a calorie deficit and I'm trying to get physical activity back into my routine where I can, especially now that my leg is not 100%, but definitely much better. And this is one of those things that I'm doing to increase my step count. Like, now I'm trying to keep my step count consistently high. And again, taking the stairs instead of the elevator is making a difference over the long term. Number 2, make walking a part of your routine. So if you have a short commute to work, let's say, consider walking or biking instead of driving. You could also walk during your lunch break or after dinner. So many people work from home now, potentially you included. This could be a really easy tweak for you to make. And these walks don't have to be long either. It could be 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 10 minutes over there. And these really do add up and can make a massive difference as well. And sometimes when you tell yourself, I'm only going to go for a 5-minute walk, sometimes when you're on that 5-minute walk, you're like, I don't even want to head back just yet. Now I've started this walk, like I'm okay to keep going for longer. Sometimes it's just a question of actually getting started as well. And once you've started, you feel like you can just keep going. So yeah, just don't give yourself this mammoth feeling of I need to do 30 minutes or nothing. Just get little walks into your routine wherever you can. Point number 3 is do 15-minute daily workouts. And if you think 15 minutes doesn't sound like much, I guarantee that the research says differently. And the difference 15 minutes of exercise is much bigger than you think. The trick is to do full body workouts, compound exercises, and progressively overload where you can. And this was something that my one-to-one online fitness member did. Alex, he did this when he first started out with me back in the end of 2022. And the reason why this worked so well is because initially he came to me and his goal was fat loss, and we smashed that goal. We lost 10 kg of body fat. But when he first started, he wasn't too keen on going to the gym. And he was like, you know what, I'm happy to do workouts at home. But you could tell he was never really the type of person, and he'd admit this himself, where just working out wasn't something he really did. It wasn't part of his identity. And, he kind of really had to push himself and make a massive conscious effort to do it initially. So I was like, let's start with 15-minute workouts just here and there. You've got a few light dumbbells at home, 2 resistance bands. We can use our body weight as well, where you don't use extra weight, and just potentially do some push-ups or body weight lunges, and we'll start with that. And that made a massive difference. And now and nowadays he's super consistent in the gym. He crushes it 3 times a week, every week, and that's amazing to see. But he started with 15-minute daily workouts, and I can assure you it makes a huge difference. And you don't necessarily have to do it at home. If you can go do your workouts at the gym, let's say on your lunch break at work, and you've only got 20 minutes to exercise, that's still fine. You can still do a lot. And in fact, that's even better than doing it at home, because obviously you've got access to a lot more equipment where you can push yourself more and progressively overload more, whether it's doing deadlifts or squats or overhead presses or chest presses or barbell rows, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's just about trying to fit in these sessions wherever it can be. And on that note, just a quick one, if part of the reason you're struggling right now with workout consistency is because you have zero idea what to do when you're training, then grab my free workout plan. Exercises within the free workout plan are complete with video examples as well, so you'll know exactly what to do, because I explain how to do it in these video examples. So yeah, you can grab your free workout plan in the show notes of this podcast episode, and it will just give you a lot more clarity with your workouts moving forward. So yeah, again, link in the show notes of this podcast episode. Anyway, point number 4, find an accountability partner. And I think this one is actually huge. Accountability can be a powerful motivator. Find a workout buddy, hire an online coach, and I'm going to shamelessly plug myself right now. The link for the inquiry form to become a one-to-one online fitness member, like Alex he still is until this day, is in the link in the show notes of this podcast. It's in the show notes. The link is in the show notes of this podcast episode as well. You could even join a fitness community to help you be more consistent. But yeah, I think accountability is massive. When I initially said this point, I paused for a moment just because I felt like there were so many potential ways I could take this point down. For example, and this is actually something I speak about in my upcoming book about fat loss. I'm hoping to release that in January 2025. Let's see how things go. It's pretty much ready, and I was going to publish it in November. I was like, let me do November. And then I thought about it for a bit longer, and I was like, November is probably a really terrible time to publish any book about, not any book, but I mean a book on any subject within fitness, because by November or December, people aren't too interested, generally speaking. So yeah, I'm gonna just have it all ready, but then publish it in January. But yeah, I went down a rabbit hole there. Just basically what I'm saying is that I did speak about in this book, and in my book I explained that whenever I've wanted to improve at something, I've always sought, is that a word? I've always sought accountability. So, for example, when I wanted to improve at Japanese, I found myself a language exchange buddy who wanted to learn. So obviously, it would be someone who was fluent in Japanese, mostly Japanese people, and they either wanted to learn Portuguese or they wanted to learn English. And I would do an exchange call with them, on not every week, but I'd say maybe once every 2 weeks. And that would just be a way of keeping me accountable with showing up for the call that day and ensuring I got something done. Or I would pay a teacher on italki to teach me on a weekly basis. And And that worked really well. I was super consistent with my Japanese lessons when I wanted to improve my business, my one-to-one online coaching business, my online fitness coaching business. I've sought a business mentor to help me, and now I'm in like Jordan Saya and Mike Vacanti's business mentorship group. I've been in there since 2021. They've helped me so much, and yeah, that's been amazing. And they keep me consistent with like monthly goals that I should be doing, and I will do those monthly goals and to the best of my ability. So yeah, just you can see that it really makes a massive difference. And this stems from not wanting to disappoint the person that you're paying money for. Like, number one, you've got skin in the game because you're paying money, but number two, you don't want to disappoint them by just telling them every single week or every month, or by not showing up or telling them you didn't do it again. You know, when I wanted to improve at jiu-jitsu, and I still do once my leg is 100% and I'm ready to get back in there, like, I obviously paid for a year membership of jiu-jitsu. I was like, I'm going to do a year up front because I want to make sure that I'm consistent with it and I turn up all the time, and that I'm still, like, even when I'm demotivated, maybe 6 months from now, whatever it might be, like, I'm still gonna come and just get it done, because again, I've paid for this now. I've got fantastic mentors at jiu-jitsu, teachers, I should say, and they're really good. So as you can see, it's just a recurring theme. Whenever you want to improve at something, you seek accountability. Anyway, point number 5 is add in exercise snacks throughout the day. So for example, you could do 5 push-ups before bed, or a pull-up every time you walk past the pull-up bar in your house, and all these sets will add up. And I feel like this is actually another point I could really like take this another rabbit hole where I could really take this down. For example, when I first wanted to get good at chin-ups, and we're talking like 2013 here, so like I'm just trying to think how far back should I tell this story. So basically, I was in the gym, and I was just in the gym one day. I was training with 2 workout partners, and bear in mind, this was like when I first started working out as a teenager, or just around that time. So I didn't know what I was doing, truth be told. And even the people I was working out with didn't really know what they were doing either. But they were doing chin-ups one day. I was with them. I tried to do a chin-up, and the height it was from was massive. Like, it was quite high. And I remember thinking, number one, I can't do a chin-up. Number two, I can't do a chin-up. And on top of that, this height is really high. So if I drop, like, I'm gonna hurt myself. And I was like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't have the confidence. And I was like, you know what? That night, I was just thinking about it, or that week, I can't remember. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a pull-up bar, and I'm gonna put it up at home, and I'm gonna really make sure I improve at pull-ups. So I ordered a pull-up bar, with my the permission of my family members, who obviously it was in their house. I was putting it up. Ordered the pull-up bar on Amazon. It arrived. Yeah, we put it up, and I told myself, I went for like a grease the groove approach, which is basically every time I walked underneath that pull-up bar, because it was in between the corridor and the dining room. Every time I walked underneath it, I had to do 1 pull-up, and that was basically my rule. It doesn't matter if I was just walking into the dining room because I had to find something, or I was just putting my plate of food on the table. Every time I walked underneath that bar, regardless of what I was doing, I had to do. It's like a tax I had to pay to walk underneath the chin-up bar. Basically, I had to do 1 chin-up, and over time, I kept doing it. Sometimes I would do 5 in a day. Sometimes I would do 10. Sometimes I would do 20 reps, like not at once, but just bit by bit by bit. Every time I walked underneath it, and over time. This was like my version of the exercise snack that I was speaking about. So it's just basically me basically giving you an example of how I approached it. Every time I did it, every time I walked underneath it, I had to do a chin up. And I did this for like months, I got really good at chin ups. And I think my personal best ended up being, and bear in mind, this was from not being able to do a chin-up at all. It ended up being like 15 bodyweight chin-ups, full range of motion, all like at once. I could do that. And obviously, eventually I started training it more at the gym and, being more specific with my training. But that's where it started from. It started from doing that. So there's a lot of potential there. And you don't necessarily have to do the same approach I did. Again, maybe on your... I don't know, and whenever you have a lunch break, maybe you can bring some resistance bands into the office. You can do a little bit of exercises here and there. Whether it's maybe before bed, you might do like as many push-ups as possible until failure. Maybe when you wake up in the morning, you might do as many squats as possible until failure, depending on what type of person you are, if you're like a morning person or something. So yeah, there's loads of ways to include these exercise snacks in throughout the day, as I like to call them. Anyway, point number 6, don't overthink it. And I think that kind of nicely brings me... This kind of nicely leads on from point number 5, which was the exercise snacks point. But yeah, point number 6, don't overthink it. Remember, you are always 5 minutes away from getting back on track. It could be 5 minutes of walking, 5 minutes of working out, 5 minutes of making a nutritious snack. getting back to being consistent with healthy habits doesn't need to be a mammoth task. I literally gave you the example of the exercise snacks I was doing. That was literally just me taking out 10 seconds to do something that would benefit me in the long term. So again, just don't overthink it. Do something, okay? Have a piece of fruit right now while you're listening to this podcast episode. Or I don't know, maybe the next time you listen to one of my podcast episodes, maybe use it at this, like listen to it on the same time as you go, while you go on a walk, for example. So yeah, just don't overthink it, just do something, okay? Because sometimes we can overthink so much that it leads us to doing nothing. And obviously that's not going to help. And then point number 7, which is the final point, is make it a priority. There comes a time when you need to stop looking for more tips and tricks and start doing. Make fitness a priority and find ways to fit it into your daily routine, because at the end of the day, it's your health, it's no one else's. So if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. And I'm saying this from a place of love. It's never to get at you, okay? This is just something that you potentially might need to hear right now. So again, this is just me saying to you, make it a priority, stop procrastinating it. You have to, we're at a point right now where potentially you have to do something, okay? Because this might not even be the first type of podcast you're listening to like this, okay? Maybe you've already listened to several like this already. Maybe you're at the point now where you didn't even really need to listen to this podcast episode. You kind of knew everything already, but you just actually needed me more so to hear me give you the nudge of saying, you know what, just go and do the damn thing right now and do that 20-minute workout that you've just continuously been procrastinating, or make that healthy snack or meal prep the night before your breakfast for the next day at work, or your lunch the next day at work for the next 2 days. Take that 5-minute walk on your lunch break, or take the stairs instead of the elevator from now on. But overall, there are many ways to include positive habits into your daily routine, even when you're short on time. As you can see, I've listed you a bunch. So I really do hope this podcast episode helped. Maybe some points were more relevant to you, others maybe less, but overall I do hope you took value from this podcast episode. Remember, if you want the free workout plan, that is in the show notes of this podcast episode. If you want to inquire, fill out the inquiry form to become a one-to-one online fitness member like Alex is, then also the inquiry form is in the show notes of this podcast episode. And for more tips and workouts from your favorite bushy eyebrowed one-to-one online fitness coach who's into studying the Japanese language and binge watching Stranger Things right now, be sure to hit the subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. Take care, and I will see you in the next podcast episode. That wraps it up for another episode of the Leo Alves podcast. I do hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. If you did, then please do consider sharing it with your friends, family, group chat, or even anyone else who you know could be interested in listening to that episode. Otherwise, if you haven't already, then please do leave a 5-star review on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And remember, all the relevant links, such as the inquiry form to potentially become a Kairos Online member, my social media handles, a free fat loss guide, and a free workout plan, are all also found in the show notes of this podcast episode as well. Otherwise, take care, and I'll see you around.